What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another highly combustible reaction. We're jumping into something a little bit off the beaten music trail. Dying in the Afterlife, what a cardiologist has researched. An interview with Pim van Lommel. Let's jump in and let's check it out together. See if we guys learn something. I've had a couple of near-death experiences, but none where I was injured. So I never really had like an out-of-body experience. But let's see what we got. If you enjoy it, get over and show Thanatos TV all the love in the world.
Dr. Pim van Lommel, you're a cardiologist and are the author of a very successful book entitled Consciousness Beyond Life, which has already been translated into very many languages. What drew you to examine the area of near-death experiences? What was the motive?
Yeah. Well, as a cardiologist, you come in contact with a lot of people who survive cardiac arrest. And after I read a book about near-death experience by who, as a medical student, had a near-death experience in 1943. After reading this book, I just wondered, why do I never hear such stories? So I started to ask patients in 1986. And in 2 years, out of 50 patients, 12 patients told me about their near-death experience. So, and then for me started a scientific curiosity, because according to our current materialistic science,
most people don't even have access to that kind of information or people to ask. Like I couldn't, it might be one person, two people, a few people in your family that have had a heart attack, but maybe none of them have had experience. Like to have that kind of group to draw information from, yes, that's something I would be totally interested in. Knowing anybody's tell me about it. I want to know what people saw. I know when my Aunt Geneva was laying in the hospital, she kept coming back from the other side talking about all of the people that she saw, all of these family members and stuff that she's, and it's like, there's something there. There's something that we need to know more about. People don't get to go to that side and cross back over very often. So when you get a whole group of people that have, and yeah, why not find out the information? This is going to be an interesting ride.
It is not possible to experience consciousness during cardiac arrest when the brain function has ceased.
Some years ago, you conducted the first prospective study of near-death experiences. So, what did this study cover? What did you want to find out?
Yeah. So the question was for me, how is it possible that people can experience an enhanced consciousness during cardiac arrest? And until that moment, there have only been retrospective studies with a high selection of patients. And based on these studies, people thought that the experiences could be caused by lack of oxygen in the brain, anoxia, or fear of death, or hallucinations, or side effects of drugs. But it has never been a real scientific prospective study. So in 1988 we started a prospective study in 10 Dutch hospitals with 344 consecutive survivors of cardiac arrest to study the cause and content of an NDE. And we studied patients who survived cardiac arrest because they all are clinical dead. And clinical death is the period of unconsciousness caused by the stopping of the circulation, no blood pressure, no circulation, no breathing at all. And this is the model most closer to the model of dying, because when you don't start CPR, within 5 to 10 minutes, all patients will die.
What were the most important findings from this study? Were there aspects that were actually very surprising for you?
What we found in these 344 patients, that 18% had indeed a period of enhanced consciousness during the period of cardiac arrest, and 82% did not have any experience at all. And what we found that these two groups were totally the same. So the duration of unconsciousness, 2 minutes or 8 minutes, or 3 weeks in coma, or the duration of cardiac arrest, 2 minutes or 5 minutes, didn't matter at all. So the severity of anoxia of the brain didn't matter at all. Fear of death, or the use medication, or foreknowledge that you know that these experiences are possible, or religion, or gender, or education. It didn't matter at all. The two groups were totally the same, which meant that we could conclude that there is no such physiological explanation like anoxia of the brain, no psychological explanation like fear of death, and no pharmacological explanation like the side effects of drugs that could explain these experiences.
Then, taking an overview, what do we experience when we die? Are there specific stages reported by all people who have had near-death experiences?
Yeah. So the near-death experience, people can tell about several universal elements. The first is that they don't feel the pain in the body anymore, or it is a traffic accident or a cardiac arrest, myocardial infarction. They wonder, is this dead? Am I dead or not? And then they can have an out-of-body experience, from a perception from a position out and above their lifeless body. They can see their own resuscitation or their own traffic accident from above. And this is a very scientific, important aspect of the near-death experience, because you can corroborate the theoretical perceptions of this out-of-body experience, and even the moment this perception must have taken place. So it's a scientific, important aspect of near-death experiences. Then it can come into a dark room, dark space, which can be frightening for some people. Then they see a small light where they're attracted to, which they describe mostly as a tunnel. Then they can enter an otherworldly dimension with beautiful colors, beautiful landscapes, beautiful music, where they can meet deceased relatives, sometimes even relatives they don't know.
Nah, man, my hair just all stood up on my whole damn body, because that's exactly what my aunt was saying. She came back and she saw a light and she saw relatives. Oh no. It's terrifying, but I really do want to know like what everybody experiences. That's something that the world asks the question, what's it gonna be like? That's something that all of humanity at some point said, I don't want to die. I'm like, I don't know. We're the fear of that unknown. If there was a way to make the unknown known, like, hey, you're just gonna go pop right over here and start over again, or that light that you see is your next mother's birth canal. Like, who knows? Like, it's something that we've been thirsty for, that knowledge for a long damn time.
They were dead. Then they can meet a light or a being of light, and mostly with this being of light, they have a feeling of unconditional love and unknown wisdom. You get answers to all the questions before you ask them. And then they can have a life review. Then you relive your whole life from birth on. And you know all the thoughts, words and acts you ever had, also from other persons. So you are connected with the consciousness of other persons in the past as well. Sometimes they can have a flash forward. That is a life preview, that you can see future event of your personal life. They can come to a border, and they know that when I cross this border, I will never come back. And then mostly they are sent back, but it's not your time yet. And then they have the awful experience of the consciousness return into the sick body with all the pain and restriction of the disease again.
Tell me it doesn't make you
not
get
all
goosebumps.
people have all these elements. Some have 3 or 4, others have 7 or 8 of these elements.
In your study, did you also look into the longer-term effects of near-death experiences? Do people who have had such experiences change in a way that is lasting?
This was also a very important aspect of our study. We did a longitudinal study with all survivors of cardiac arrest with an NDE and a matched control group of patients who also survived cardiac arrest but did not have any memories at all, to see if the classical transformation you hear from the patients, which is the loss of the fear of death, a new insight what is important in life, which is acceptance and love and empathy towards yourself as well as towards others, and towards nature, because you experience a total connectedness with everybody and with the planet. And the third thing is the enhanced intuitive sensibility, which means that they feel connected with other peoples as well, which is very disturbing. And
it's a little disturbing. That's a great word for it.
Because you cannot share your experience with others. It's for the first 10 or 20 years, it's a trauma. They have depression, loneliness, and homesickness to this experience. And the important thing was that what we found, that the classical transformation only is seen in the people with an NDE. So the transformation is not due to the cardiac arrest, but to the NDE. So this is the objective part of the subjective experience. And the whole study, the prospective and the longitudinal study, was published in The Lancet in December 2001.
Consciousness is often described as a function of the brain. On the other hand, there is the view that the brain does not produce consciousness, but rather is a receiving organ for consciousness.
That's
So what is your
an
view?
intriguing thought.
Where does consciousness come from? Does it arise in the brain, or can it also exist without the body?
Yeah. As a medical student, we have learned that consciousness is a product of brain function. And we have to, this is a never proven hypothesis, and we have to discuss this again, because people with cardiac arrest, we know, and there have been studies done, that when you have cardiac arrest, within seconds you lose consciousness. There are no body reflexes anymore, which is a function of the cortex. There are no brainstem reflexes anymore. The gag reflex, the corneal reflex, and widened pupils are clinical findings. There's no breathing anymore, and the breathing center is close to the brainstem. And when you measure the electrical activity of the brain, which is the EEG, you see a flatline EEG within 15 seconds. And we know that all patients with cardiac arrest, it takes more than 20 seconds, mostly 60 to 120 seconds before they are resuscitated, or mostly even longer. So we know that all these patients with this enhanced consciousness, with this near-death experience, with cognition, with emotions, with clear thoughts, with memories, happens during the period of a non-functioning brain. So the concept we had learned should be discussed again.
And blow your head off.
In my opinion now is that consciousness is not localized in the brain, and the brain has a facilitating function and not a producing function to experience consciousness. So it is a sender and a receiver for consciousness. So the information from your body and from your senses are sent to your consciousness, and you receive information from your consciousness into your body by your brain. So the consciousness is not localized in the brain and not just in the brain, but it is everywhere, what I call non-local consciousness, because there is no time and no space in this
is a matrix
of enhanced
right there.
consciousness.
If one assumes that consciousness can also exist outside the body, does that not have consequences for medical ethics? For the way we treat people who are close to death?
Yeah, I think it's a very important aspect of medicine. I think you have to change healthcare as well, because when you now know from all those people who had the death experience that death is not death, and they tell us that I can live without my body, but my body cannot live without me. I'm a conscious being without my body. That means that how do we treat patients in deep coma? How do we patients in the end states of life? What are our thoughts about euthanasia or abortion? What do we do with patients with all this trying to keep them alive with a lot of suffering, instead of let nature do its work? So there are a lot of aspects, there are ethical aspects for our healthcare.
Has anything changed for you personally since you have been working on the topic of near-death experiences? Also,
These are
regarding
excellent
scientific
questions.
acceptance of this topic, do you think there have been any developments over the last 10 or 15 years?
First of all, of course, I changed myself. I think you don't have to experience your own NDE to change when you're open for it. And when you hear, I've heard hundreds of thousands of people telling me about the NDE, and I've received thousands of emails or letters from people all over the world telling me about the NDE. Then for me, death is something else. Death is just a changing state of consciousness, like birth as well. So there's a continuity of consciousness not dependent of the body anymore. But I know this kind of approach about the mind-brain relationship is not widely accepted. Most neuroscientists in the world still believe
a lot of things that we believe now weren't widely accepted at some point. They were just somebody's hypothesis, and we still roll with them today, even though a lot of things don't have any like proven concrete facts. Like
that consciousness is a product of brain function. So there's a lot of skepticism as well, mostly anonymous on website. They attack the messenger and not started a scientific discussion. But it's changing. I think I lecture quite a lot in universities, hospitals, hospices, medical students, philosophy students. So I get a lot of invitation from all over the world, Yale University or New York Academy of Sciences. So I think it is changing, I'm positive, but it's a slow progress. But we know in the history of science that all new ideas, people need time to accept it.
Exactly.
And there's always a lot of struggle against new concepts. That's the history of science as well.
Dr. van Lommel, thank you very much for this interview, and I wish you every success in your continued work disseminating these ideas.
Thank you.
If that didn't make you think, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Dying in the Afterlife, what a cardiologist has researched. An interview with Pim van Lommel. Definitely get over it. Show him Thanatos TV, all the love in the world. That was an amazing interview. I can't imagine having that kind of data to be able to pull from. Just having it at your, okay, I'm going to ask everybody that goes and comes back, hey, what did you see? Did you see anything? Do you have any recollection of it? Did you have an out-of-body experience? All of that kind of stuff is very intriguing because we don't know about death. It's like one of those great unknowns. So to think that there's people finding ways to kind of get some information to make you think, absolutely, I'm about it. I want to hear every story. Get over, show Thanatos TV, all the love in the world. Smash the like button if you liked it, the dislike button, but I won't believe you. Tell the next one about the Combustible. You guys be happy, healthy, safe, but let me to the moon and back. Peace.